Half-Shell Oyster House offers award-winning cuisine and service. Named TripAdvisor Best Top 10 Small Chains in the United States. Voted Best Seafood in Mississippi Magazine 8 times. You can enjoy award-winning oysters and seafood, delicious steaks, pastas, sandwiches, salads, and so much more in a unique, polished casual dining experience. Half-Shell Oyster House is located at 115 Laurel Park Cove, Suite 105, Flowood, Mississippi 39232. Or you can give them a call at 769-257-7586. And hey, tell them Sonia sent you.
She say sports. She say sports. She say sports. She say sports.
Hey y'all, it's your girl Sonia, and welcome back to She Say Sports. Today, I have with me author and psychotherapist Michael Dangerfield, and the usual suspects, former NFL players Cedric Donaldson and Jameion Spencer. How y'all doing today?
Fantastic.
Great.
How about you?
I am doing well. Before I get into what we're here for, Christmas is in a few days. Have you guys finished your Christmas shopping?
Nope.
I need to spend a little money on a psychotherapist. It's the worst time of year for me, man.
Mike, what about you?
Thankfully, I have a wife who looks out and two daughters, so she keeps me on my toes. And she does this, and I give it, and she makes it all happen.
She makes it happen.
So we good.
So y'all done? Okay, great. Well, have you got your wife's gift yet?
That part.
That part.
I figured not. Well, you got to get to moving, brother.
Got to do better. Got to
Get to moving. Well, as you know, we lost a tremendous talent last week to suicide. Stephen Twitch Boss. I have been watching him for years, and all of you are familiar with who he is, correct? A dancer, professional dancer. He was on So You Think You Can Dance. I didn't watch that, but Ellen DeGeneres actually saw him on that show and brought him. He was going to do one episode of Ellen and ended up there for 10 years. So I watched him, light up that stage. Wherever he was, his personality was magnetic, and he was amazing and seemed very loving and kind. I mean, that's all I ever heard from everybody that met him, and Ellen loved him. But we lost him to suicide last week, and because of his passing, I wanted to bring you guys on to discuss, this very serious topic. And it not only happens in entertainment, but also in sports. So, Michael, in the past few years, I'll start with you. In the past few years, we've been seeing a large number of African Americans committing suicide, especially Black men. Is this becoming an epidemic in our community?
Yeah, I believe it is. And it's gone on. It's been happening, but somewhere around the time the pandemic happened, I feel like that was kind of a threshold, like, that saturation point happened, and a lot of men, got to a point to where they had to face some things and perhaps realize that they were not able to face those things.
So you're saying that they couldn't face the pandemic or just being in the house, or
right?
Can you elaborate?
Yeah. So if there's anything that we often say that we know that a man is, especially a Black man, is a provider, right? And a protector. The protector is not always physical, sometimes it's just, making sure everything is secure. Same thing with provider. It's not always the money. It's about, just being able to be present. Well, that sense of control got taken away from so many people, jobs gone, not having an outlet of being able to get out and move about and go to the barbershop and go to, whatever.
Okay.
We were forced to sometimes be home and be in a space that perhaps was uncomfortable, without money, without being able to fulfill the purpose that, you know, we had assumed, the role we had assumed all the time. And, you know, then you have to try to think about and process and use skills that you really never received. Because, you know, I know you athletes probably know much more than I do, that, you know, it's drilled in us from an early age, you know, like you don't show what you feel. You go out there and anything that you have, you channel that and you take out the opponent, you score, you run, you know, you be the best that you can be. When you're not in a position to do that, and now you got to say, okay, what am I supposed to do? Yeah,
that's true. So you mentioned the barbershop, and that's an interesting thing, because that's where a lot of men are able to vent and, you know, say things they can't say at home with the wife or the, you know, the kids. And that's a very valid point. I'm going to ask you this, because you mentioned about the job thing. As I mentioned, Twitch had been on Ellen for 10 years. So it ended in May. Could that possibly have been a part of his depression? Maybe, you know, we don't know.
Absolutely.
But, you know, now he's at home. You know, he doesn't have a job right now. Well, TikTok, they're making money from the videos they're doing on TikTok and Instagram and all that, but he's like literally not doing anything. So do you think that probably had a play in it?
Absolutely. Now, let's be honest. I don't know what TikTok is paying, but I'm sure it wasn't paying like Ellen was. But at the same time, that's a transition. That's a transition like athletes would know as well. You know, you come from playing a sport, getting paid real good, getting attention, all the fanfare and all, you know, you think it's never going to end. And then it ends and you weren't prepared for it. And it's like, oh, what am I supposed to do now? And then bills show up and real life show up. And, you know, I'm not saying that's all of what he had to experience, but yeah, any transition, any change from something that's super comfortable into a place where you got to deal with the fear of the unknown, and you got to figure that thing out. If you don't have those skills, it can lead you to a depression for sure. That's
true. And Jameion, I want you to jump in real quick soon, but before you do that, I want to ask you this, Mike. We'll make a comment. So we saw Twitch. That's kind of the face of mental illness or depression, because we don't know. He seemed happy. He seemed in a good place. We're just looking at him on social media for, you know, what, 58 seconds. And so we're thinking, oh, he's great. You know, he's loving life. But how can we tell when, you know, someone is going through something? How? I mean.
So one of the things that's cool about social media is it connects us. One of the things that's not so good about social media is it gives us an opportunity to put our best face forward, put on this facade that, you know, everything is cool. The best version of ourselves get presented, you know, to everybody else. And so if you don't have people who really know you, if you don't have, if you're not comfortable with really being yourself in the social media space, or you don't have support, some people who really know you, that can be very devastating for you. So it doesn't surprise me that some people turn towards social media. And I'm not saying this about him, right? But some people turn towards social media to perhaps create a, you know, a persona, create an image of themselves that they feel like is good for self-esteem. If perhaps in that, you know, who they are in their most natural environment, they're not happy with themselves, or they are depressed. And so you run into those kind of things, and we see that a lot more and more often.
Wow. So guys, I brought you on because as athletes, you've also had different forms of depression when you leave the game, or stress from trying to provide for your families. And even just like he just said, just trying, you know, the limelight and missing that when the game is over, when you have to hang up those cleats. Jay, you and I had to talk about this the day after Twitch passed. And I mentioned it to you about, you know, football players or athletes, you know, how it is when you have to stop playing the game that you love, that you grew up, you know, doing all your life. Can you elaborate on what you shared with me that day?
Yeah. So, you know, I think, you know, like I've kind of mentioned in the past, football, at least for me, and I know State will probably agree. I mean, it was the best and worst girlfriend you've ever had. I mean, it was that first love, that first kiss, that first sense of almost being a titan as you're ever going to be in your life. And that transition a lot of times is not good. I mean, it's not cute when she decides to break up with you. It's hard, it's quick, it's permanent, and it's hard to accept. And I think from an athlete perspective, and at least for me, that transition, that journey had to be walked alone. When we talk
Wow.
about that persona you create, often kind of refer to, the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but a lot of times when people all of a sudden don't want Mr. Hyde and you're now left with Dr. Jekyll, you got to figure out, where does Dr. Jekyll fit into your life? Where does Dr. Jekyll fit into a relevance point in your transition? And sometimes, man, it takes some time. It takes some time to move from being that persona that everybody wants to see to all of a sudden now being that regular dude that nobody wants to see. And I can tell we talk about it, when that box is left with your name on it, you can't even go back into the locker room. You grab your stuff, you hit the car, there's nothing stopping you between that door and your home, and it ain't no telling where you're going to end up for the most part on that journey. And I think that's the part that people don't see.
Wow.
Yeah.
Say it.
A vivid picture.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part too. Especially if you've been there for quite a while. You have teammates in the locker room and they come get you, come get your playbook, and I've heard stories where a guy went to his car, came back in with a gun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What?
in
Yeah.
Tampa,
Yeah.
ready to kill everybody.
Oh,
It's hard to think beyond what you're doing because you're putting everything into it. At that level, you got to put everything into it. And so you're putting everything into it. But the best thing that ever happened to me, I was always fighting to be there anyway, on any level. And once I got to New York and I saw a teammate, he was in the starting role and he moved his kids up to New York. And as soon as they got there, the day they got there, the kids got in school, he was traded to cut and sent to Chicago or traded to Chicago.
oh my gosh.
And that was the light for me. I'm like, I knew I was nothing at that point. At that point, I was like, hey, you're nothing. You barely here. So every day I minimize myself. I will never let anybody put me on a pedestal. Oh man, you in the NFL. You play, I was like, man, football play me. Like I'm the one getting
Interesting.
And so it was a hard, even with that though, when it was over for me, like it was hard. I knew I had to give, I was used to fighting. So I had to transition right then. So I drove from Miami back to Baton Rouge, got in school, couldn't have not one day off because, I needed that transition.
Your mind. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So let me ask you this, and maybe you've kind of answered it already. Have either of you had a time where you felt hopeless and just didn't want to go on, but decided to talk to someone?
I've talked to people. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't get to the point to where I knew what was coming. I know me, so I felt it. And I was just like, hey, this is not me. And so, I reached out and got some, somebody to talk it out with.
That's good.
Yeah, I can't break confidentiality, Sonia, but I've had an opportunity to do some therapy with some NFL players, some NBA players, and one who went to LSU and played football at the NFL level as well. And it's interesting, to hear that perspective. You said something that's on replay in my mind. You said you had to minimize yourself because you knew at that point that you was always a business deal away from being wherever, right?
Yep.
And then you made a transition out. So the fact that you had to minimize yourself, but we're always encouraged to be the best versions of ourselves, and come
Right.
with confidence, and come with
Mhm.
like that balance is a tough one.
It was an animal.
Thank God that you had at least enough of a support system, or resources for you to recognize that and say, let me get ahead of this.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of people that look like us, especially athletes in sports,
Mhm.
don't have that. And so
Yeah.
that's why you end up in that situation with the gun. The white man can't jump. I'm going to the car, I get my gun and shoot everybody. That's where that
crazy.
kind of stuff happens, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's crazy. Wow. Have either of you had to deal with somebody, one of your teammates, that was struggling with mental health or just didn't want to go any further, and you kind of gave them a hand, kind of save their lives, or do you recall?
Uh, uh, I wouldn't, I wouldn't say that I, necessarily knew um, I was saving somebody's life, but I do remember once upon a time there was a kid who he was younger than me, and he had those aspiration dreams. It wasn't football. He was actually going into baseball, and
Okay.
we happened to be in Tampa. And I ran into him, knew he was from my hometown and everything else. And, I mean, we just had like, a simple conversation. We sat down, had a meal, I paid for his food, blah, 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 blah. He was telling me about everything that was going on. And, years later, he actually told me that, man, he was really thinking about committing suicide. That day he met me, he saw me.
Wow.
But you don't know that
You don't
you're out
know.
there helping people. I mean, I try and treat people the way I want to be treated, and for me, I like I told him, I was like, me seeing him probably was as refreshing as anything. Seeing somebody from Monroe helped me because I was in my transition. I wasn't as lucky to have that very short transition because mine was a little bit longer because you go back into work. I went to a whole new career trying to figure out, how this thing works. So it was a little bit longer for me, but just having that familiar face and somebody that you can, talk to anything outside of what's immediately going on did me wonders. So, I think that was my closest incident, but I don't think I knew at the time that I was helping him. So we know by reaching out and talking does help people. But it's hard. It's hard for bros to come to the table and say, "Hey, I need to talk to somebody." We just aren't wired that way, and it's going to take some generational emotional intelligence for us to really get rid of that part of our psyche that we have really held on to as that machismo that's made us who we are over these years.
Yeah.
That is so true.
When I was at LSU, we had a little circle in front of our dorm, and one of our teammates was there. He was a year younger than me, so he was probably a freshman. No, I was a junior. He was a sophomore, and we sat out in front of this dorm and just cracked jokes on each other, all day, right? And
I'm
so
sorry,
one night,
Mike, you have to know him, but go ahead.
yeah. So one night we
I'm
out
with
there
it.
with him.
I'm
I
with
don't
it.
want to say his name, but and we just cracking jokes and he joking back, right? And I think he went to Shaw in New Orleans.
Hmm.
But he was a gangster, and they said he was the only gangster they knew majoring in drama arts, you know what I mean? And so it was a good joke. He had a sister to go to the school, and his sister was nice, nice and had a nice body. And this cat played line, and they kept telling him like, "Man, you finer than your sister," you know what I mean? I mean, just like really
Y'all,
ripping on him, right? Well, everybody, we had just ate lunch, and everybody went back to the room, and things was normal. And then we get a late night call. Everybody come to the dorm. This man went to the riverbank, shot himself in the head.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just like that, I mean, he was laughing just as hard as anybody, and he was giving them back just like he was taking them. And it was a good night. And then all of a sudden, you come in the
Did
dorm.
he leave a note? Did anybody find out why?
Nah, shot himself in the head
Yeah.
in his car.
Yeah.
And so when Mike Leach just passed just a minute ago, I know it's not suicide and anything like that, but I was talking to some of the some supporters of Mississippi State. I was like, bruh, like the damage on them kids, even though he didn't kill himself, just that because you feel like you invincible at that age.
Yeah.
And then, you see your coach, one day he screaming at you saying, you soft, you this, you that, you that. And then the next day, bam, he gone.
Mhm.
That takes a reckoning, man. You're gonna have to, like, all them kids need to be talked to somebody.
Yeah.
And they don't even know it yet, because
Yep.
I'm about to say that the situation at LSU bothered me to this day. I think about I replay that pretty much, if not every day, every other day.
Did you ever think that y'all had something to do with it? But you said he was
Yeah,
laughing too.
Yeah, when it first did it, man, everybody was replaying it. Like, is it what I said? Because
Yeah.
but he was giving it back just like he was, and we all had to go talk to somebody then, like the whole team, because you wondering, is it something you said? So.
And not to digress, and I'm really not trying to be funny. Just like you said, like, the passing of Coach Leach, even with the transition with Coach Prime leaving Jackson State, people are cracking up
Yeah.
on social
Yeah.
media about
Yeah.
this man leaving.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna lie, I've cried a couple of times. I mean, I have struggled. It's been hard because, the community bought in and we loved him, and I still love him. You're about to laugh. They got Shadur's barbecue sauce 10 for 10 at Kroger right now. I bought it. It's good. Jameion, I'm going to give you some. It's really good. And I mean, people are angry. They are. I'm talking about tripping out. The young man that dropped the ball Saturday, they have been threatening him.
Yeah.
And his mom got on there and was like, I had 2 kids to commit suicide. My
Mhm.
third child had an overdose and killed himself because he was depressed about one of the brothers. Please leave my son alone. And
Yeah.
it is so sad. Everybody is cracking up around me. Mike, how important, that's not what I want to ask you. How common is untreated mental health illness in our community?
How common is it? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, that, I read something recently that said that is the number one, basic, when it comes to suicide, untreated depression is the number one reason that people kill themselves. And when you think
Wow.
about African Americans, especially African American men, I think Jameion said it earlier, we're not wired. We're not wired to talk, and we're not trained to talk by our dads and grandfathers, and we're taught to do something aggressive with all the energy,
Suck
and
it
all the
up.
stuff that we
Yeah.
feel, and push it down or push it out.
Don't cry. They told y'all don't cry. Yeah.
Right. And you better not show it on your face. Like, don't process it. Do something with it. Yeah. There's a lot of stats and data around suicide, and there's some around African American men. I don't believe that it's accurate though, because as I said, we're not talking about what we feel.
Yeah.
So when you think about suicide and depression, you gotta think about kind of 3 levels of it. There's the ideation, suicide ideation, and it could be something as simple as, yo, life's so hard right now, like maybe it'd just be easier if I wasn't here. Just that dialogue and that thought about saying, man, I'm a burden, I dropped the ball, the team would be better without me, maybe, like that happens a lot of times. People don't know about that. There's the attempts, suicide attempts, like trying some pills, trying to jump off of something, trying to hang yourself or whatever, and then not working, right? And then there's the actual completion of suicide. From a clinical psychological perspective, all that is considered risk factors. That talk about it, the thoughts about it, the attempts that didn't go through, and actually having a plan and trying to execute it. Like, there's a lot. We don't talk about that. Nobody would know, perhaps, if you're in a situation where somebody else that did it and you feel comfortable enough to talk to somebody about what you're feeling, maybe you talk about it. But we're not going to therapy. And
No.
that's where it usually will come out. And so, that's part of the reason why I do this work myself.
So Mike, how important is it for men to have these types of conversations, whether with a friend or a therapist?
I couldn't qualify or quantify the importance of having this conversation. Even myself, not being an athlete, of course I had hoop dreams. I went to the military. You know a little bit about my story, Sonia. 6'5", had plans on going to NBA and play pro. And I broke my foot on the way out of the military, had to get screws and stuff. Couldn't stay in the military, hoop dreams gone. And it's like, oh my goodness, what is my life at this point? This has been the last 7 years, fresh out of high school. What did I do? I wouldn't above that. Like, we have to have a space to where we can talk and be honest and real. And it's not going to be looked at as weakness. It's not going to be looked at as that. Be a man, suck it up. That's not what we do. It's got to be like, yo, I'm scared right now. I don't know what to do. This was my life. What else is there for me? I'm still supposed to be a man and be a provider and do all this stuff. How do I do that? We got to have the conversation. Whether it's at the barbershop, or it's on the phone with the homies, or it's, laughing in the backyard, barbecuing. Like, we have to have those conversations.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, all three of you, starting with Jameion. When was the last time, honestly, when was the last time you have cried, like cried for real?
Ooh.
Really?
Ooh. Honestly,
Honestly, yeah.
honestly, well, 2012. Honestly,
Really?
honestly,
About 11 years ago.
yeah. I mean, if I'm being just straight up honest with you, and we talking about just that cry, that cleansing. Hey, this is pure.
Cleansing cry.
And actually, it was after my father had passed. Who was my rock, my psychologist. My dude, and even though you kind of go through the whole funeral and handling a lot of things, but it was actually on a ride back to Alabama work. And I just had to pull over, man, and I had to let it go for about an hour, but I was alone. I was by myself. Outside of that, but again, it's not who you're expected to be, because I know when I got to Alabama who I needed to be. I know who I needed to be when I got back to, New Orleans. When I was at home, I know who I needed to be when I made that stop, along the way. And, and I would say, yeah, it's probably been a good 11 years since I can honestly say I can remember having a real one.
Yeah. Said?
Man, a real cleansing cry, I don't know. I can't remember. Like, I'm wired crazy too. Like, I didn't cry at my mom's funeral. None of that. My best friend died. Party, I ain't cry at his funeral. But if I go to a Little League football game and see a kid do something crazy, I shed tears. But it's not it's not a cleansing cry. So I don't know. But I don't know when the last time I just had a real cry.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this much, and I'm sorry, I know you're probably going to ask something else, or we probably go to Mike. But I think one of the issues we have, especially like you were talking about like transition with JSU and Prime, or any of those figures. I think people, when you get to a certain point, people only want to talk to the persona, right? They only want to talk to the personality.
Yeah.
And that in itself can make you extremely fearful of being able to open up to anybody, because, all of that self-worth, time, conversation, anything vested emotionally is really with that persona and not with the person. For me, that's what made the transition so long, because I couldn't separate the two. You know, when you're used to having the tights and cape on all the time, it's very hard for people to understand that, you know what, there's some things that Superman don't know, you know, and it's hard to admit that. It's some things that Superman isn't comfortable doing, and you know, and you got to figure some things out. But again, when you don't have the resources and you don't have the support there along that journey, all it does is just delay that whole transition. So, you know, yeah, I get it when people say, yeah, you know, like, you know, our JSU guys, we're transitioning from, you know, Coach Prime. But to be honest with you, are we really not happy that the man came and did what he did in such a short period of
Exactly.
time and has bettered himself and his life and those players and those coaches, the
Right.
things
I'm
that he's
happy
done?
for him.
Right. You know, and I say, you know, because I think we almost I'm sorry. We almost depend on that level of benevolence, right? To
Right.
really help us, you know, and we become very selfish in doing that. But to be honest with you, I wanted to see the man have a parade right down, you know, State Street. I mean, he
Absolutely.
deserves that, right? So
Absolutely. I
I'm sorry.
totally
I'll
agree.
shut up now.
No, I totally agree. Saturday, when he was on the field, you know, I took video and pictures because I'm like, this it, you know, I've been a fan since, you know, Prime became Prime, you know, in the 90s. And so it was so cool to, you know, help. He gave us back-to-back SWAC champs. So I'm excited, but we're not here for that. Prime, you know, we'll move on. Michael, I know you're the therapist, but when was the last time you cried? And it better be recent with you. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So you know, you guys talked about that cleansing cry, you know. I have to qualify that because, you know, a lot of us men probably can't remember, you know, that happened often because that's not necessarily something that we do. But that's not to say that we don't cry. We don't have, you know,
Yeah.
even if it's, you know, just a couple of tears at the Little League football game.
Yeah.
It's a cry nonetheless. It's a cry nonetheless.
Yeah, you're right.
But my dad passed away this year, end of January, beginning of February, and it was one of those things where our relationship wasn't that great. You know, like I always wanted better, but I knew it had to be a two-way street. And I think I had a cleansing cry because I had to get to a point to where I'm like, the potential for that relationship is gone, right?
Yeah.
But I had peace knowing that I did the part that I could, right?
Yeah.
So that was the last deep cry. Now, mind you, I'm married 15 years and I have 2 daughters, 10 and 12. So
You're about to really start crying.
you know, it has already started. Like, you know, when I think about them going through puberty and I think about them growing up and not being babies and me being able to hold them and them getting invited to birthday parties by boys and you know,
I'm with you behind that. I might be crying right now.
I'll be crying in the car. I'll be like,
yeah. I'm definitely gonna be crying. I'm the same. I got 2 little girls, 8 and 6.
And
it's coming.
Jay
It's
has
coming,
2
Ted.
boys.
It is coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I, you know, I encourage them to be, you know, to be open with what they feel. And I'm the only man in the house, and right. And so, and the funny thing really is, and we talked about this before, Sonia. When I was a kid, I'm the youngest of 6. I got 3 older brothers, 2 sisters. I was so super sensitive. I cried about everything, and I couldn't even explain why. Somebody yell, I'm crying, you know. And older brothers will punch me. Stop all that crying. I'm in sports, you know, still, you know. But I got older, went to the military, you know, and I had to learn how to flip that switch. And then I got cold, and then nobody was saying any emotion.
So it wasn't a balance. It wasn't a balance.
It was not, but that was my balance because I didn't know how to not.
Oh, I see.
You know, so I had to go all the way to the other end. But guess what? My oldest daughter, I see all of that in her, that sensitivity, and she's so active and stuff. But the drop of a dime, she's crying for something, and I had to be real intentional about not being on her. One, she's a female. Like I want her to express her feelings. But then two, because she reminded me so much of myself, I
Mhm.
had to not talk to her like I was talking to the young boy version of me, you know, be like, why are you
Right.
crying? You know, and so that has been a transition. And so I've been more open about recognizing that. Plus, I'm not afraid to say it. I got a therapist myself because I deal with a lot of people and a lot of
Oh yeah.
problems and a lot of stuff. And I need that space for myself too. So, you know, it ain't nothing for me to every now and then if I need to, you know, shed a couple, you know, I shed a
That's
couple.
awesome. That's good. You have to. So Cedric, you have lots of brothers. What is it, 6 or 7?
It's 7 of us total. 1 girl, 6 boys.
Yeah.
Woo.
So you have blood brothers. Have you guys ever, do you all come together and have powwows and just kind of vent and talk to each other and let stuff out? Do y'all do that?
Man, we used to all go to our mom one at a time. And so when she
I love
passed,
her.
oh yeah, when she passed, like it at first it wasn't like that, but now it's starting to be more, the older we get, the more we coming together. And even my pops, like after my last game at LSU, I walked out, I had never hugged a dude before in my life. And
Are you
this is
serious?
yeah. And so he went to he didn't know whether to shake my hand, give me a hug, one or the other,
You're like,
and it was weird. But now, he got grandkids and I see how he treat them, it's a total different. But he was military, his whole life, did over 20 years, 6 sons.
Yeah.
It was, and so, but he never treated my sister like that though. Like my sister was the oldest. And so, he had that loving kindness thing with her. But for us, he just, they would talk to, you got boys, they got to be strong, this and that. And so, that's how we came up until I got old enough to realize, hey man, this ain't normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, so tell us how you really feel about that, Sid.
right.
Turn this into a therapy session.
Yeah.
Get your
Look at
virtual
when
That's
when I did that therapy session. Hey, this is one I wanted to share this too. So
Mhm.
one of the things that helped me deal with a whole lot of my losses or bad things that happened, I played DB. So I had a coach to tell me one time, he was like, said, because I was trying to be perfect. And whenever I got caught on, it would bother me. And I was pretty much done the rest of the game if I ever got caught on. And then he told me, he was like, said, look here, they can catch 7 balls on you in a row. You can knock one down or get a pick and you won for the game. He was like, just think of it like baseball. If you can bat 300 on a year, you're a Hall of Famer. And that just let all the air out. And so I started chasing the losses, because I knew if I could get to 7, I'm about to get 1 or 2. Something was good was about to happen to me, which is why I'm in sales now. It's the same kind of scenario.
Yeah.
And that's
That's
awesome.
that's a great analogy. That's the good way of looking at it. That's awesome. So Mike, what's your advice to these guys as well, and men out there who has the pressure of work, family, and just trying not to crack under pressure? What would you suggest or advise them?
Yeah, man. These guys gave so many nuggets.
They did.
I don't know that there's a lot more that they could do differently, but some things I would suggest perhaps to other guys who are not as emotionally intelligent and aware as these young men. One is having a support system for sure. Like you need a network of, a person or other people that you can really talk to and be able to be real with and all that. Like you need somebody who you can release with there. The other thing is be intentional about like taking breaks, mental breaks. Because what we do sometimes is we lock ourselves in as men that it's business. So gotta take care of this from one fire to the next, and it's all damage control and firefighting.
Jameion Spencer, go ahead.
Yeah.
No, look.
That's him. No, I'm glad you're saying this.
You heard me take that deep breath, didn't you?
Yes. I'm on it, and
Yeah.
not to cut you off, Mike, but I'm
Go ahead.
on him all the time. I've known Jameion 8 years, and Jameion takes care of everybody, but he won't allow others to take care of him a lot. And I hate that. You're such an amazing guy. You're always helping us. Me, Nikki, and Tish, all of us, you know, we're single, we're not married, and he takes care of all of us. All, you know, then he has his own family. Then his wife has sisters. He's taking care of his mama. You have to let us take care of you sometimes. I'm sorry, but you do.
That's real.
Hey,
That's real.
if Jamie don't want it, take care of me. I'll take it. Hey, hey, I deserved that after he ran over me in high school. So
Still remember that. Still remember
I still
that.
remember.
Thank you for making
And I would also, last but not least, too, I would encourage, you know, any guy to sit down and perhaps try therapy. You know, it
Yeah.
might not be for everybody, right? But if it's done right, it's like preventative maintenance on your car. You know,
Yeah.
it don't have to be, you know, the bottom and falling out, and now you are at a point to where you're thinking suicide and crisis. It really can be, yo, let me just sit down and talk to somebody.
Yeah.
We're trained in being able to identify some of those things that perhaps, you know, you haven't thought about, you know, and put some things in place. So
That's true. Guys, thank y'all so much. I'm so thankful that you were brave enough to do this because, you know, no, especially me, and nobody really want to talk about their feelings. And you did this, and I appreciate y'all for coming on with Mike and just being honest, being real. I appreciate that. But to lighten things up, we're gonna play a little. You can give it this or you can give it that because I need to get these. And did my makeup and it's cute and I need to get over it. Okay. But we're gonna play. You can give it this, give it that, and it's just a game we play where the guests, where the listeners and myself get to know the guests better. I'll ask you a few questions and you choose the one that best fits you. Funny, Elf on the Shelf, or would you prefer playing Santa? All of y'all got kids, so would you prefer Elf on the Shelf? I already
I'm
know
Elf
what
on the
you
Shelf.
Yeah.
Elf on the Shelf.
Yeah, elf on the shelf.
Look, I'm having way too much fun with mine.
Yeah. My elf didn't move last night. I had to make up a story.
you know, I'm gonna go with Santa. I like to spice it up and you know, try something different and new.
Yeah.
We'll get Elf on the Shelf.
Okay, Santa spicing it up.
6'5" Santa.
6'5" Santa.
I've also been an elf, 6'5" elf. So
I don't want to see it. I don't.
I'm gonna send you some pictures. Yeah, that was.
Please. Do you prefer opening gifts before Christmas or on Christmas Day? Hello?
This year before Christmas because I wanna travel to Mississippi on Christmas Day, so we're gonna do it on the 25th.
So y'all, you bring you're gonna do the gifts at home and then
Yeah.
come home.
Yeah,
Y'all
then-
don't like to travel with gifts. Okay.
No, hate that.
So y'all coming home. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Jay?
I mean, I just love gifts, period. I mean, before, after, it don't matter with me. Look, but I think I do appreciate having gifts on Christmas Day to open.
I like to open on Christmas Day. Mike?
I guess I'm a little weird, and that might be my hang up. I'm more excited about seeing other people open their gifts and stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily need a gift.
Oh yeah.
So I would probably open my gift before so that, you know, everybody else can kind of get my attention and cheers and stuff. So.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I'm a girl. I don't care. Like, it's so funny. I have me and Nova Grace. We have stockings on the fireplace mantle, and you know, I got her little gifts in there. Like, she gonna know. I mean, she's a puppy, but my supervisor gave me a Nuke's gift card last week, and I've already seen it, but I threw it in the thing. I'm like, I want to have something, you know, in my stocking or whatever. So yeah, I like. Whatever, Jameion. I like Christmas Day.
Hey, I'm with you. Look.
She's gonna shock herself.
Right. Oh my gosh, a Nuke's.
You should
And
have.
what's funny, I do that, y'all. I'm so dramatic. Okay, would you prefer the fireplace or the old school heater? Remember
I'm at the
those
fireplace.
Fireplace? Oh, you too bougie now?
Yeah,
Remember your grandmama used to lift up her house?
Yeah.
Oh, y'all too bougie. Okay.
I think I would go with fireplace too. I mean, it's nostalgic, you know, the old school heaters, but something about, you know, future planning and forward thinking.
Got you.
They were hazards, man. But you know what? I'm gonna go old school heaters, man. Look. Look, there was nothing better than running by that thing, getting a quick warm up, and then taking off into the cold. Look, hey, look,
Yeah.
I appreciated being efficient during that time, man.
It was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, look, you could keep coffee warm, one side of cocoa
You can
warm.
boil water, a pot.
Look,
Yeah.
Yeah, you cook on top of them bugs and everything.
Yeah, but look,
was
roast your
amazing.
marshmallow, eat that baby, keep on kicking. I mean, look.
But why you gotta run? Hilarious. I probably prefer the fireplace now, but that is very nostalgic with that heater. I can see me as a little girl and seeing both my grandmama, and she done burned a coat, you know, her house coat or whatever. It was good times. You know, Best Man series is coming out on Peacock this weekend, the 22nd. So y'all get ready. So do you prefer Best Man the movie or Best Man Holiday the movie?
Best man.
Yeah, that's rough, man. Cause I just watched Best Man Holiday 2 times the other day. But Best Man though was epic though.
Man, it was
When,
classic.
yeah, when it came out, it was like game changer.
Yeah.
Best
Yeah.
Man Holiday is dope, but Best Man.
Yeah, Best Man.
Best Man. Best
Yeah,
Man.
you're right. It was epic when that movie came out, and I can still see
Candy.
what's his name, Morris Chestnut, when he walked in the that restaurant and the music was playing and all of them was like, there he is. You know, I was like, ooh. Well, you know, I had my own feelings, but I mean, that's one of my favorite parts. So, yeah, but it was a great movie. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to the series that's coming out on the 22nd. So,
Lord, I'm glad Fred wasn't here to talk about Neil Long.
Me too, man.
Baby, that's why I brought. That's exactly why I put it on here, because I thought Fred was gonna be on it.
We need a friend here so Doc can talk to him about swallowing them tears and spitting them out.
Like, I told Michael a little bit about him. Honey, I wish you could have met him. He is
We're gonna have to do
hilarious.
this again in part 2.
We got to.
I'd
Mike,
love to meet
Fred
him.
is a clown. He is so crazy. This is funny. This is another one why I wanted him on here, because I wanted to hear what he had to say. Would you rather live with the person you least like in the world, or live alone? Why are you and Jamie, all three y'all looked up?
At least I'm trying to see what that'll be like. Hey, I'm living alone.
You know, give me, look, solitary.
Yeah,
Solitary.
I can deal
Confinement,
with
look.
this one.
Oh.
I was like, are you trying to send me to jail? Is Wayne Brady gonna have to choke him?
I was saying, go ahead.
I was like this.
Look, the therapist in me want to be like,
That
you here
is
by
hilarious.
yourself will only work for so long, but I'm like, if this is the person I least like, and you know, get
Oh
on
my
the same
God.
page, that's gonna
Yeah.
be horrible. I'm gonna
Boy,
do
be some
solitary.
furniture moving up in there.
Let's go with solitary. I'll talk to myself.
That would not be healthy for anybody.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh
I'll talk to
yeah,
myself.
thank y'all for that. That was great. Do you prefer logic or emotion?
I'm logic.
Logic. I still can't handle emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
that's
can see. Look at Mike. Look
So,
at Mike.
so, and the reason I'm, you know, if you're gonna ask a therapist question, you know, I'm gonna
Right.
give you theory. There's the idea of the wise mind that is a combination of logic and emotion put together.
Mhm.
So, you know, I'm probably more of an emotional person. Like, logically, I understand rationally what makes sense, but I try to connect to people's emotions, and sometimes I'll throw what's right out the window for the sake of trying to, you know, connect with somebody if they need that emotional release or whatever. So I'll go with emotion.
You know, when I answered that question, I answered it from a point of me, like, when I was young, I got in trouble, and I had, you know, it was by being emotional. And I would just, if it was time to fight, you said something, dude, I'm fighting, like, right then at the drop of a dime.
Yeah, no
And
problem.
I had to start thinking through, you know, everything else. So I answered that from that standpoint.
I
That makes
see.
sense.
Yeah,
That
and,
makes a lot of sense.
and see, I'm kind of like Sid because, you know, I think throughout my life, anything bad has been tied to the lack of control in my emotion, or people can't hear what I say because of how I'm saying it. And that's where my emotion comes in.
Yeah.
I mean, Sonya didn't heard me on some of my conference calls. When I get in it, I look. Ain't no telling what's gonna fly out this grill.
And he's like a big gentle teddy bear, but yeah, he got a little rough side.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah. That's okay. I mean, you gotta have that sometimes. It's okay. And I put this because I'm going to her concert in June 2nd to be exact. Would you prefer going to see Janet Jackson in concert or Beyonce?
Janet, give me Janet.
Absolutely.
Give me Janet.
You gotta think about it, you two.
Give me Janet.
I just saw Janet just a minute ago, and I haven't saw Beyonce
I
yet.
don't.
Look, I love
Wanna
Beyonce.
stop just because Janet.
Yes.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, take me all the way back to Penny. For Good Time. That's where I'm going back. I'm going back to Penny.
Yeah.
It was a good concert. I went and saw it at the Essence, so it was good. And I will go see her again, but I hadn't seen. Yes, I have. I saw Beyonce one time in concert. So I don't know.
Beyonce has a fantastic show. Yeah, she does a fantastic job, man.
I'm more of a Janet fan than
Yeah.
Beyonce though. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I want to see Beyonce, but I'm definitely going to see Janet. We're going to see her in Dallas June 2nd. I'm so ready. Would you rather be able to see the future or change the future?
I want to see it if I can't change it. So
I would rather change it. I don't want to see it.
yeah, I
I
change it.
want. No, I don't want to. I don't want to change it. I don't want to
You
change
would
it.
rather see it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, actually neither. Can I just choose that?
Yeah.
I mean,
That's what I'm saying. I think seeing it is
yeah.
worse.
I mean,
Yeah.
because you know, I wouldn't want to change it because I just feel like, you know, I mean, everybody's predetermined and destined to do something in their life, and if you change that, I think you're cheating the journey, right? You know, so
Yeah.
and to see it, I think that would influence what I do and how I do it. I don't want to do that. I want to live every day worth what it's worth, you know. So
I'm the one that walked through New Orleans and be telling the fortune tellers, "Get away from me!"
Call me now. Call me so you're kidding right now off of people.
What you tell them?
Get away from me! I can't say the last part.
Hilarious. Okay, fine. Y'all don't want to see or change it. Mike, what about you?
I would be okay with seeing it if I didn't have to live in it. Like if I knew that the future was gonna be the future, and I just get to take a look at it and be like, oh, you know. But I wasn't gonna be impacting it, or I wasn't gonna impact me. I'd be cool with it.
So way past your time.
Way past my time. Not.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I kinda wanna- And I get what y'all saying, because you're right. We are pretty much predestined, but I guess I'm thinking about, I don't have any regrets, so to speak, but I want to change a couple of things. I wish I could. New Edition or Jodeci?
New Edition. All
New
day.
Edition.
New Edition.
New
I'm
Edition.
actually the other member. Like for real.
Wait a minute.
I'm a buck the
Bobby,
system though.
wait a minute.
I
Ronnie,
was
Bobby, Ricky, and Mike. Johnny, what's your next say?
Yeah.
I'm about the system. I was on some Jodeci. Nah, I ain't taking nothing away from my boys New Edition, but you know, Casey and JoJo in their prime. I enjoyed it.
Hey, me too. Me too.
Well, I actually saw them both in Louisiana in April.
They still doing stuff?
Mm-hmm.
What? New Edition got a new tour coming out next year. What?
Oh, I thought you. I'm sorry.
Oh, you meant, but no, Jodeci. They just Jodeci. That was their first tour in some years because they were like having alcoholism issues.
Right. That's why I was like, they still. Yeah.
Let me tell you something. No, when them brothers are clean, when I say they put on a show, they started on time. They opened. They did like 45 minutes, flawless. When I say great, they did a great show. I mean, New Edition is that's my team. Period. Every time they put on a tour, I'm there. So I'll be there next year as well.
Yeah, me too.
Last but not least, and I really had this for Fred. Fred that messed it up. Which comedian you prefer, Bernie Mac or Steve Harvey?
Ooh,
I'm going Bernie Mac.
I'm gonna go Bernie. Yeah, I ain't scared of you,
Yeah.
Killer, gorilla,
Stir like coffee. No, man, give me some Bernie.
Yeah, give me Bernie.
I love Stevie, but give me some Bernie. Oh
Absolutely.
man,
Steve's stand-up is not funny to me at all, but I love him on shows, and every day I'm watching Family Feud. I love him on Family Feud, but Bernie was hilarious stand-up. He was hilarious in movies. He was hilarious in his sitcom. I'm talking about
Chi-Town.
he was that guy. You said what?
Chi-Town.
Chi-Town, baby. Before I started recording this show, I was actually watching Head of the State, and I was giggling because he was like, "What do you think about NATO? NATO ain't getting into me. NATO don't bother me." I'm talking about that tickles me. But he was so serious. He was like, "NATO don't bother me. I don't bother NATO." What? I mean, yeah. It's so good to laugh, especially after what we talked about. But thank you so much for coming on the show. Michael, tell the listeners how they can follow you on social media, as well as tell them about your books.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm on social media, Instagram, M_Danger, the helper, all one word. Or you can just kind of Google me, Michael Dangerfield therapist. Pop up. I do have 3 books. One is kind of a memoir. It's called Identity Crisis Averted. It talks about my story, journey, military, life, and how I ended up doing this work, And then there's a twist in there, learn about my biological dad. Kind of interesting. And then I have 2 journals. One is a men's journal. It's called Reflections of a Man, a guided memento. The idea is because we don't talk, we don't have these conversations. I designed it so men can kind of answer some of those tough questions, about what's important to them and who they are, and perhaps pass it down. So even if they have grandkids one day, who never get to see them and know who granddad was and what he looked like, they have this book, they have this memento where they can, know a little bit about what was important to him. So that's that. And then there's a woman's journal, which is called Reflections of a Woman, Questions from a Man. And essentially there's a lot of things that men want to know from women about how they feel and what's going on. Perhaps women do this work, they talk to each other, men typically don't. So this was my opportunity to kind of put men and women together in this space where they could have some dialogue. And so a few more, things in the works. But to be released and to be determined.
And isn't someone that's on this show with you have an insert in your book? Can you tell us who that was?
I believe her name is Miss Sonia Stamps.
Thank you.
She has,
Bam.
You want to find some positive words of inspiration from Miss Sonia Stamps? Y'all go and purchase that journal. You can find them on Amazon. And,
preach.
I'll screenshot it to you guys. Thanks.
Yeah,
do that. Hey, how can where are you located?
I'm in Houston, Texas.
Okay. So
Now,
somebody called.
Oh, go ahead.
I got a call the other day from a friend, said he was looking for, somebody that's, he said it was for a friend, but you know how that goes.
Yeah.
was looking for a Black, therapist to talk to. And so we had a rough time finding one.
What?
So the challenge with the license for clinical mental health counseling world is the laws are trying to catch up. Right now, it's like attorneys and doctors, medical practitioners, you're only able to be licensed in your state. Now I lived in other states to provide therapy across lines, and so the world had
That's so weird.
It is so weird. I have thoughts about why that's the case, but things are changing. There's
Can you
coaching.
can you recommend him some therapists in that city or that town?
Absolutely. And I can point him towards a website and a couple of websites, therapyforblackmen.com, Psychology Today. They allow you to type in your zip code and your area code, and you can find therapists by specialty, gender, insurance, no insurance, and all that. Resources for sure.
That's awesome.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
Cool. And guys, you can follow me on Facebook at She Say Sports, Instagram She Say Sports 23, She Say Sports 23. Huh? Did I say that? Twitter.
Talking to Zola back there?
On Instagram, She Say Sports 23. On Twitter, She Say 23. And guys, please subscribe to our YouTube page. Well, that's my show for today. Until next time, this is Sonia with She Say Sports, Jameion, and Ced. Merry Christmas, guys.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
See you
Nice
next
meeting y'all.
year.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to y'all as well. Thanks.